Дякую вам. Добрий день, good afternoon, bonjour. It's a pleasure to speak to you today on behalf of the Canadian Election Observation Mission, Caneom. The presidential election in Ukraine held on the 25th of May in the vast majority of Ukrainians' territories has met, in our opinion, international democratic standards. Notwithstanding the troubling violence in Luhansk and Donetsk regions and the illegal occupation of sovereign Ukrainian territory in Crimea, our conclusion is that this election is a genuine reflection of the will of the people of Ukraine. Yesterday's election took place in every region of the country except in occupied Crimea. There were significant doubts about whether voting would be able to occur at all in Donetsk and Luhansk because of the continuing violence and threat of violence by militants who sought to disrupt the vote. And the fact that the voters turned out at all in those two regions was a testament to the resolve of the people. That said, I would be remiss if I did not mention that the illegal occupation of Crimea by the Russian Federation in effect disenfranchised more than 1.5 million Ukrainian citizens by depriving them of the right to vote for their presidential choice. The overall campaign in Ukraine was quiet and free of violations, in our opinion. In fact, the people of Ukraine should be proud of this election, and it was a significant improvement over both the parliamentary elections in 2012 and the presidential of 2010, in both the degree and incidence of election day irregularities, as well as the electoral environment that contributes to a fair election. In 2012, there were severe problems in tabulation and transmission of results. No significant issues of this kind were reported by our observers during this election. Similarly, the state of freedom of the press appears to have been improved in recent months on a number of important measures compared with the last general elections in 2012. For example, self-censorship of journalists appears to have decreased significantly. These are significant improvements. We commend the government and the election administration for doing all that is possible to ensure that this election took place. The disenfranchisement of voters in Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts and of the citizens of Ukraine living in the occupied territory of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea is not the result of the actions taken by Ukraine's governing authorities, nor its election administration. Rather, the disenfranchisement of voters in these regions of Ukraine is the result of illegal invasion by a foreign power and the violation caused by armed militants acting outside the boundaries of both domestic and international law. That is our findings, and I turn to Mr. Harris for more.
Thank you. To speak specifically about a number of electoral dimensions, according to the analysis of our long-term observers, the electoral framework, legal framework, underwent several amendments over the course of the election period to strengthen its compliance with international standards and democratic principles. These changes balance the protection of voting rights and the integrity of voting processes. The Central Election Commission organized the early presidential elections in a professional, nonpartisan manner and within prescribed legal deadlines, despite a shortened election time frame and disruptive actions by militant groups in some parts of the country. Where they were operational, district and precinct election commissions were observed to fulfill their legal responsibilities. The challenge cited most frequently by long-term observers related to turnover of a district electoral commission and precinct electoral commission officials. However, improvements to the quality, scope, and accessibility of PEC training appeared to mitigate any potential problems. In the case of our short-term observers, scrutinizing the immediate lead-up to Election Day and the events of Election Day, we can report that the vast majority of the few irregularities or challenges, in fact almost all, were of a routine and administrative nature. Finally, I will echo Senator Andreychuk's comments about the disruptions in both Donetsk and Luhansk. Actions by militant groups to sabotage the elections in these two regions slowed and blocked the formation of DECs and PECs, and slowed or blocked the transfer of voter lists and other procedures in these oblasts. Alleged violations reported to have occurred in these oblasts by militant groups prior to the election day included the following: threats, physical assaults of commissioners, destruction of commission materials, and shutdowns of District Electoral Commission premises. The Caneom mission did visit several PEC premises that had been shut down by armed militants in the Donetsk Oblast. Our mission unequivocally condemns the use of violence and intimidation by these militant groups, which violated basic democratic and human rights of Canadian citizens. But we stress that these intimidating actions and their consequences were not representative of the election processes conducted in the territory of Ukraine. We witnessed an improved electoral system, a strong willingness to vote, a strong voter turnout, which combined to strongly bolster confidence in the results of Sunday's vote.
Oops. In conclusion, I would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to our excellent observers for their dedication, hard work, and for doing an excellent job in observing over 2,000 polling stations in 23 oblasts. I also express my appreciation on behalf of our mission to the Government of Canada for sponsoring this mission and for its continued support for the people of Ukraine and for this country's democratic development. I would like to acknowledge our ambassador and the staff who have worked tirelessly day in and day out and have been very committed to their professionalism on behalf of Canada in very trying times. We know you've taken a lead action here, and we're very proud and appreciative of it. Our country thanks you on that score. We offer our sincere appreciation to the officials of all the various offices and institutions, from the Central Election Commission to various government ministries, for their cooperation and support throughout this process. Finally, I would like to commend the role of the domestic observers for their professionalism and for their role in supporting transparency during the election process. They have come a long way. It's been difficult, and they've reached a professional status that will serve their country well. So on behalf of the mission, we thank all who have participated, and we're happy to take any questions should there be some.
Okay. If possible, we will open to a few questions. Any questions from our colleagues? Sure.
Международный отдел Центральной Рады сотен Майдана. Скажите, пожалуйста, после выборов, какие уже известный факт, что президент Украины избран. Вот. Осталось только это официально подтвердить. И президент Порошенко будет. Скажите, пожалуйста, какие перспективы открываются между Канадой и Украиной в отношениях после избрания удачного президента?
Я буду по-английски. We're here as the mission, and we're part of Canada. We have watched the Maidan process. We have watched the Crimea issue, and we are here in the professional capacity to observe the election. And so we've made our findings. We'll make our final findings. Your question really goes to the heart of where our country, Canada, will go with the new administration. That's not for me to answer. Perhaps the ambassador wants to answer that. But I will say that I can speak, I think, for most Canadians, that the engagement between Canada and Ukraine, the people of Canada and Ukraine, will continue. We want to play a constructive role. We want to get engaged, and we will do what we can. I think our track record proves that by the fact that we have these missions over and over again. Our track record is by the number of initiatives here. Our countries have a lot that we can do together. We can learn from Ukraine, but if there is anything we can do, I think I can speak. That's a neutral statement. But over and above the specifics with this administration, we will be reporting back that the will of the people came through. They elected their president, and now the Electoral Commission will do what they have to do, and in time the two governments will have to speak to each other and determine that. So I would say it's the start of a new era, and stay tuned, listen to the two governments as they work together.
Thank you. There is one more here.
Информационное агентство «Украинские новости». Скажите, пожалуйста, встречались ли ваши наблюдатели канадские с каким-либо негативным отношением к себе со стороны местного населения Восточной Украины? Ведь есть такой стереотип, что вот западное на Востоке плохо воспринимают. И были ли еще наблюдатели из западных стран, помимо Канады, на Востоке Украины? Спасибо большое.
Well, I think the senator may wish to comment as well. I don't think our observers were treated any differently than other observers or than those in those lists who wish to vote. It's a matter of record. None of us were treated very well by the militant groups in both of those lists, but I did not get any sense from our observers that they were treated any differently than all the rest.
I think that we were here to observe. We abide by the international standards and rules for observers. I don't think in that case we are any different. I should say that it's important to have outsiders come in at a critical time. We were here on the invitation of the Ukrainian government. I must say that the feedback that I've received, and I went out yesterday outside of Kiev to Dnipropetrovsk, people came up to talk about not me, but about their wishes to have an election and to convince us that they had, in fact, an opportunity to vote. Unfortunately, in two oblasts, it didn't work out that way.
Do we have any more questions to our speakers? Yes, one more if possible. Sure.
Скажите, пожалуйста, Канада будет поддерживать и способствовать, чтобы Украина вступила в НАТО? И как можно быстрее?
The people in Ukraine spoke who they wanted to be leader. The people will have to deal with their leader, and we think at this case we know who that leader will be, and that leader will talk to his people. We will see where that goes. NATO will have a summit meeting. We're not here representing the government. We're independent. There is a NATO summit meeting coming. I'm sure that the leadership here will express itself. I have no opinion as to what the people and the government here are going to do. I think it's a new era. I think there will be new debates, new reflections, and we in Canada will wait to see what the administration does here. and take it into account. So I again say, I think this is a moment like independence where the people can get their views known. And I think in some of our reporting, we have said that this is a moment in time where the people have spoken, they had an opportunity to speak, it was a fair election, and their leader will respond in a democratic way and allow the people's voices to be heard, but it'll be through their government, not through me.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any more questions to the speakers? If I could just maybe follow up with one final question. Under the circumstances, you have mentioned that not obviously in all of the election commissions in Luhansk and Donetsk Oblast, elections were able to take part. Do you have a feeling that Ukrainian government has done everything possible to make it happen? And also, given the circumstances, do we still consider that the voices of all Ukrainian national people were heard?
In every election, there are balances and difficulties. The fact of the polls was not because of the actions of their government or the Electoral Commission. I was here before, and we pointed out difficulties in the Electoral Commission that impeded people's voice. And what we're saying now, it was a fair election. We had every hope that the same process was being applied, and we are saying now that we think the government attempted to bring the election to all the people. The Electoral Commission did that. It was these other forces that we both pointed out in our report that precluded the will of the people coming to the polling stations and voting without a climate of intimidation.
Thank you very much. If we don't have any more questions, thank you very much for your mission and for your report. Again, welcome to Ukrainian Crisis Media Center and welcome to Ukraine again. Thank you.